Welcome to the latest edition of the Cranky Curmudgeon's Corner. My name is Paul Thomas, and this evening we are going to be discussing the future. With us on our panel is Monica Colbert, Whitney Brooks, and Jack Finkenbinder. Welcome, panel. Well, it is debatable as to how much dominance religion played in social order prior to the ascendancy of Christianity. There is little doubt that it has had a stranglehold influence on the politics governing society since then. The divine right of kings being just one example. Lately, though, some have observed a gradual diminishment of respect for that authority among populations. Hierarchies such as the imams, ayatollahs, bishops, and megachurch ministers remain desperate to cling to power and prestige. What degree of influence do you see religion having in the future? Whitney, how strong do you think that influence is in maintaining its power over society?
Pretty strong. I mean, I think a lot of the kind of societal issues that we face are rooted in I don't want to say rooted in religion, but like I guess kind of like rooted in uh like willful misunderstanding and misinterpretation of religious texts that, people base their whole faith on. And I don't see that ending anytime soon, unfortunately. It's just, I think it's really a matter of trying to encourage the people who really like wanna like follow the examples of their religion, and like it's kind of hard for me to talk about this because I'm not religious at all. I'm very much secular. And so, but like if you take Christianity, for example, I think that the only way to combat like the kind of negative effects of Christianity and like the people, like I said, who will willfully misinterpret text and messages to spread hate and things like that, that's kind of like one of those things where I don't think that it's not gonna change unless they hear it from their own. I think, if that makes sense. Like if I'm arguing with somebody over this, they're less likely to want to listen to what I say if unless than they would be if like the same thing that I was saying came from another Christian. And even then they would find a way to be like, oh well, they're not a true follower or whatever. But I think that that's uh I think that that's going to be a big part of it going forward.
But isn't it what you're referring to is identification as Christians? Because I think what Jesus said was pretty cool stuff. But he said that a man cannot go to heaven if he's rich. It's like the eye of the needle or whatever that was. And they're certainly not following that. But the white nationalist Christians seem to feel that that what Jesus basically said must be ignored because that doesn't follow through with the hate that they want to promote.
Yeah.
Okay, Jack, you cited in our initial question that one of the threats that you felt, one of the big threats was religion. So, do you see that having a big part of the future of our world here, or do you see that may be somewhat on the decline now, as far as its power and prominence?
Uh, I do think it's on the decline. I have friends my age, very close friends my age. They're both different forms of Christianity, and we actually have open conversations with each other about like why we believe these things, why we don't. who believes what, why, and they're fun things to talk about. And it could be just because we're young and we're not set in stone, as if you will. But we're very open about what we believe and what we don't. I'm not religious anymore. I used to be, but I'm not anymore. Um, and
What
so I
changed? What caused that change? Can
what
you share
changed,
that?
honestly, so it's just some life events happened, and that kind of really changed things for me. Nothing to do with the religion, just life events itself. And
All right, let me ask you this about the friends that you were talk to. Are they churchgoers? Do they attend
yes,
services? Okay.
yes, both of them totally different forms of Christianity. I'll say one of them's Mormon, and the other one I believe is, oh gosh, I do not remember. I think Lutheran. I
Okay.
could be wrong.
Okay.
Something like that. Haven't studied religion in a bit. So, but we have open conversations about it, and we don't get mad at each other if we have different opinions. I've talked to them, both of them, about things like abortion, and we have different opinions with that kind of thing, but we all agree that it is a right, it is a right. And I think that's going in the right direction. That even if you don't believe that it's a good thing, even though I have my opinions, my strong opinions, but even if you don't believe it's the right thing, let other people do what they need to do, you know. So I think we're going in the right direction. I think it's on the decline, but also there's a steady amount of people that are still religious in my age group, and the ones that I know are okay. The
Yeah.
ones I know are safe.
Can I
Yeah.
just
Sure.
add on to that?
Sure.
I mentioned earlier I have two kids. I have a 10-year-old and I have a 12-year-old who'll be 13 later this summer. And I mentioned we're not a religious family, but my older kiddo has friends that are they come from all different walks of life. We live in just outside of Chicago, so where we live is very kind of diverse anyway. Um, but so he's got um one of his best friends is Muslim, and another one I think is, actually I'm not sure about that, but they had one kid in their friend group who was Christian. I can't remember what denomination it was, but he and his family were very devout, to the point where I found out recently, like within the last like year or so, that this kid in their friend group was like uh very boldly spouting homophobia and like just kind of Islamophobia and stuff like that. Like there was another kid in their friend group who is um bisexual but closeted to his parents, and this kid threatened to out him to his parents just because he didn't agree with it. And so I really had to sit down with my son and have a conversation with him. And I've never once told him that he couldn't be friends with somebody. I never needed to. It's never been an issue up until now. And I still gave him this choice, but I said, you can disagree with your friends over, things like whether or not pineapple belongs on pizza, but it's not just a difference of opinion when it comes to people's human rights. And that's really where the difference is. Because my son was like, well, we just don't really talk about it. And I'm like, okay, well, but you should, especially if it's, this kid is, saying these things that are really harmful and hurtful to other kids in your kind of friend group. That's a problem. And so that's kind of like, um, thankfully that kid moved out of state in January, so I didn't even have to tell him, hey, you can't be friends with him anymore. um, but yeah, I mean,
But when you get to age 13, you sort of enter the age of cruelty. I
yeah.
remember when I was 13, I was mean, especially to people I could bully around.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of like with the age. And I was bullied too. So I was just, handing it back. Um, okay, Monica,
Yeah.
religion. On the decline, or is it still something
It's interesting because I don't I think about, I mean, my mother goes to church and her friend group in that generation religiously. I stopped, when I was about 14, my mom said, "Oh, it's your choice." And honestly, I really just didn't like to get up early. I'm like, if church was, at 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, I'd be cool. But so I don't really know the younger generations if they're still interested in religion or what have you. I know that it's Judeo-Christian values are so entwined with like Western politics that becomes, I mean, even down to Roe v. Wade, that becomes problematic. And I'm waiting for, just like the patriarchy to die out, that hopefully wanes, with the new generations, that they are more tolerant. And that's, the example, Whitney, that you're giving about your son's friend. That is what scares me so much about, I guess, not just religion, but people that are fanatics or zealots or take it to the point, really misuse it, because religion, if anything, should be tolerance, not intolerance, right? But it just scares me that there is generations that are passing these ideals about what religion is and what it should do and how it should, how it can be used to control other people or affect other people. That's scary that is still, permeating this youthful generation, these alphas. So I don't know.
Well, the problem I'm seeing with religion is that it fosters intolerance. Like, if you're not my religion, then you're going straight to hell.
Right.
At least that's what I was taught as a young Catholic. Since life began on this planet, the deadliest species to emerge has been us. Number of species now extinct due to human interaction can't even be tabulated. At the COP15 Biodiversity Summit in Canada this past December, they predicted that this current mass extinction event could see about 1 million more species going bye-bye. Another disturbing aspect of this lethality is the ease in which we manage to kill each other in activities such as war and opening up on unarmed groups now routinely referred to as mass shootings. In America, I just heard this on the news today, the average is a little over 2 mass shootings a day. After Uvalde, the federal government installed a gun control law that best can be described as pathetic. Subsequent mass shootings, since it became law, have used legally purchased firearms. How hopeful are you that our species will ever get past this propensity to kill off everything else, including ourselves? Monica, I mean, the rate in which we are knocking each other off with guns.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when I think about extinction and us being the greatest threat to species, the species I guess I'm most concerned with, particularly, is young black males.
Yeah.
Because between gun violence and incarceration, that is a group that I am very, very, very worried about and very afraid for. And I see so much happening in areas around, where I live, and it is like, it's a it's a crisis right now that has to be dealt with. It absolutely has to be dealt with. And that's another thing I don't see, politicians speaking to, and really having a concern about, because most of them are white males, and this doesn't concern them so much. But
this is not a new crisis. I mean, let's just look at the lynchings that occurred.
Oh, yeah, right.
Of people were hung by trees.
Right.
Of that group that you're talking about.
Absolutely. I would like to see things being done about gun control in general, of course, especially for all youth, but particularly in the Black community as well. It's really scary.
Okay, Jack, you're from a place where there are a lot of guns around. Lots of people will go to the death hanging onto their guns. So, what's your take on this killing with guns thing up there?
Yeah. I'm not too hopeful right now about gun violence and if it'll change anytime soon. Not soon anyway. Until we get our act together and realize that I think anyway, until we realize that mental health has a big part to play in the actions of people, of bad people and good people. Mental illness is a huge aspect of these mass shootings. I feel like anyway. Um, uh, the mandate on guns is another issue. I think it's connected, but how far I'm not sure. Uh, there's there's a country who has, I think it's Switzerland. They have a pretty interesting gun law that I was looking into, but I like how they treat guns in that country. But yeah,
My wife believes that every gun that you own should be insured. And if you have to pay insurance, and then if your gun is involved in some kind of thing that could cause liability, then the insurance has to pay for that. And if the insurance premiums get too high, people may not have as many guns.
Right.
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
I think I agree. I agree. Okay, Whitney. I don't know how much gun violence you've been encountered in your life, but I'm sure you've seen it around.
No, actually, despite growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, but it's because I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago and not,
Right.
I grew up in a, predominantly white middle class, suburb, and that's kind of where I've been ever since.
But that doesn't diminish your concern about
No, just my experience, personal
Right.
experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But my concern, yeah, I mean, just kind of going back to the idea of like the evolution of technology, people always harp on, the Second Amendment and right to bear arms and all that stuff, and don't really think about how, like, when that law was written, it was back when, we had like muskets that take like 5 minutes to reload after one shot. I don't know how guns work, but it's like certainly nothing like what we have now. And so, like, I just think that the laws need to evolve with the technology, and that really goes for everything, not just guns. Like, just laws and regulation in general need to evolve as technology evolves. But I mean, I
How
think
hopeful? How hopeful are you that that will occur?
honestly, I think that the biggest issue that the United States has with gun violence and mass shootings, because it's a problem that's unique to us. Nobody else has this problem. Is that the NRA and gun lobbyists have such a firm hold on the people who are making and passing these policies. And I don't think that our, like, rules and regulations around that are going to change until that changes. And I don't know what it's going to take for that to happen. But I remain hopeful that it will at some point. I mean, just kind of thinking about in my lifetime. I mean, I was in, I want to say, seventh grade when Columbine happened, and so I was, certainly old enough to remember and understand what was happening. And then, things just got progressively worse since then, and now since I've been an adult, they've gotten worse in the sense that it's not that it's like younger kids now that are being targeted also, and that's terrifying for me as you know, as a human being, but also as you know, an adult, a parent, a teacher. And yeah, I don't think that the like culture around guns in the US is going to change until the kind of foothold that the NRA and gun lobbyists have changes or goes away.
Okay, so you're hopeful, but then not really all that hopeful.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting tidbit. Survivor of Sandy Hook, enrolled in Michigan State University, and she is also a survivor of that gun violence that just occurred. So you know, you live to survive one gun shooting at your school, and then you go to another school, and there it is again.
My teaching partner and I were just talking about this recently. She didn't cite anybody specific like that, but said that she had read about how now the numbers of people who have lived through more than one of these events is climbing. It's, you know, it's high enough that it's, you know, there's data on it, and that is just horrible.
Truly horrible. Since Alan Turing invented the computer and Al Gore invented the internet, a technological phenomenon called social media has emerged and inflicted its dominant influence on global society. We talked about this in the very first question. What is your assessment of the benefits and detriments to our current circumstance and your prediction of how it will affect the future? Jack, you grew up, I mean, it was all around you as a little baby, and so you've seen the good and the bad. So what do you think about the benefits as well as the detriments of social media?
Yeah, well, there are definitely some detriments. But there are a few benefits. I think they kind of go hand in hand. Like I said, the good is you get to communicate with people. The bad is you get to communicate with people.
Mm-hmm.
There's different problems that I don't think we ever got to talking about. There's mental health on social media. Like seeing pictures of people that are highly photoshopped or edited and feeling bad when you yourself don't look like that. Like, you know what I mean? Mental health and self-image is becoming a real problem for people my age and people younger than me now, Gen Alpha. I think that's going to keep being a real problem, even with these campaigns of you look beautiful, who you are. You know, a lot of us don't really see that. We see, oh, pretty person. They don't look like me though. I have to look like this person. So you go through that whole emotion.
Well,
Um,
there was a recent report about the suicide rate among girls because
mhm.
of their of the way that their image has been portrayed and the cyberbullying that's occurring. It's just
Yeah,
skyrocketing suicide among young girls.
I believe it. I believe it. Yeah, from what I've seen.
Social media, Whitney, good and the bad.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with everything Jack just said, but I think, you know, the flip side of that is that because of social media, I think there's a lot more awareness around mental health than there used to be. Like, I've noticed in kind of my age bracket within like, I don't know, a decade or so, a lot of us, because of social media, are kind of going through these um I don't want to say awakenings, but like are just kind of like learning things about themselves that they might not have known about because they didn't have the information, they didn't weren't able to connect with other people who were going through the same thing. That really makes a big impact, and that's why we have like, you know, these, you know, this like you know, we have some Gen X and millennials that are, you know, in their adulthood now realizing that they are not straight or they are not cisgender or that they have, various mental illnesses or disorders. Like I said, I'm 36 years old. Before Since I've turned 30, I have come out as bisexual, realized that I have ADHD, and realized and started getting treatment for an eating disorder, and just all of these things that like I would not have known about without the education about it that social media brought me, and the connection to other people going through the same thing that social media brought me.
So you're saying that as a pretty big benefit in your life, particularly.
Yeah, my life in particular. I mean, like I said, for better or for worse, there's always good and bad. I mean, there's a lot of horrible things that happen on the internet, but then there's a lot of like really wonderful and amazing things that happen too, that wouldn't happen without social media. So, I mean, it's just, yeah, I don't really know how to, or have any suggestions on how to kind of like minimize the bad stuff and maximize the good stuff. I think it's just a reality that we're going to have to live with, and we have to kind of try to find ways to tackle each issue. Like, I know my kids going through school, they have like uh part of their curriculum is like very specific, like social emotional learning, and learning about like emotional impact of things like bullying and cyberbullying and things like, stuff like that I certainly didn't have growing up. And I think that those things are like a direct response to bad things that have happened because of social media. We know we can't avoid those things, and so now here we're giving you tools to be able to deal with it and manage it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Monica, go ahead.
another I guess that goes along with that is that we are seeing companies we are seeing accountability issues with some like Facebook and Twitter that are having to acknowledge that yes, their content can damage youth and teenagers, and they're having to sit and rethink all that and what kind of content they put out there and who has access to it. And we are seeing them being taken to task in courts. So that's a good thing. And that's one instance where, I guess regulations and laws are trying to keep up with the technology. So that's a good thing. But yeah, overall, I mean, it's, the great thing about it is all of the information, and the bad thing is all of the misinformation. So
You brought an interesting point about the courts. Just recently, actually, I think it was just last week, they heard the Supreme Court heard a case where someone was suing YouTube because of the Islamic terrorist thing, because of the algorithms directed the ISIS to do better recruiting.
yeah.
And the podcast I listened to that talked about this said that the only of all 9 justices on the Supreme Court, the only one that really got into the issue of what it was about was Ketanji Brown Jackson. All the other justices just, oh, well, this is too hard. I don't even know what the internet's all about. Yeah, so they need to bone up on this because it's a serious issue. Okay, how do you see the politics of race relations moving forward from this point? Monica, I'm gonna let you go last on this one, but I'll start off with Whitney. The politics of race relations moving forward into the future. How do you see it playing out?
If you would ask me that question in 2014, maybe I would have had a better answer, or a more hopeful answer. I don't know. I think in a lot of ways, the future is good. Like I said, there's a lot more awareness and understanding that is a big step towards healing and fixing the issues that we have. But there's also nastiness that persists, and I don't have a good answer for how to get rid of that. It's again digging out the root system that our society is based on. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that we're moving in the right direction. There's been, some good things that have happened, precedents being set for, police officers being held accountable for murdering people and Black people. And
Only when they get caught, though. Only when
Right,
they get caught.
right.
yeah, but I mean, and I know that there was like a lot of I don't want to say division because that's not the right word, but there was like from what I could see in my corner of, the internet and whatnot, I could see some kind of like after after Derek Chauvin was convicted, I saw some kind of grumblings in the Black community about like, oh, I'm not excited. I'm not going to praise people for doing the bare minimum of what they should be done. And I'm like, yes, I understand that, but this is really important because it sets a precedent, and that will be really important going forward for when this happens again, not if, because we all know it's going to. And so I think things like that it's really, I mean, saying that it's awful is not adequate. There aren't really any words for how awful it is. It's really terrible that it had to come to that, but I'm hoping that there is some good that will come out of it that will kind of pave the way to make things easier going forward. That's kind of how I feel about all of the like race relations in general, not just about that specific case, but just in general. I feel like there's a lot of horrible things that are happening, but I hope that good things come out of it that, like I said, pave the way to make things easier in the future for change for the better.
Jack, my recollection of the town that you live in is that it's pretty lily white. There may be some indigenous native folks there, but I don't even think there was too many. I didn't get to know too many of them there. So you might be looking at this issue from afar, as far that instead of like the personal experience that these other two panelists may have. So what's your take on the race relationship issue moving forward, looking at it from a distance?
Well, looking at it from the news, because that is really all where I see it. I really do live in a community that is, I don't think I've seen anyone of minority in this community at all, of any race or ethnicity. Um, but just from watching the news, I don't know what to say other than I hope it can be fixed. I don't really know. Besides voting people into office that actually are willing to make a change and will make a change, I don't I don't really understand it all that much. I don't understand why police police officers do what they do and feel the feel the need to be horrible to people just because of one factor. I don't understand it, and I'll never understand it, fully because I am white, and that makes me horribly sad that just people have to go through that just because of one factor. I I think the only way I know how to change that and how the future will actually become a better place is just voting the right people in to actually make changes for the better.
Yeah, I think that's the one tool we do have available to us is the power to vote.
Yeah.
Monica, I fully agree with your earlier assessment about how dangerous it is to be a young Black man in
Mhm.
today's society. So how do you see this moving forward?
Right now for me, things look pretty bleak. Things look pretty bleak because, I think there needs to be real systematic change in a lot of areas. There needs to be more equity, across the board economically, um, access to good, decent housing. We still have communities that have food deserts. We education equity. We have really areas with really good schools and areas with really bad schools. And they tend to be, good and bad around racial lines. Until we have, more people, I guess, in office, or more of ourselves that stand up and say, hey, this is not okay, until there is real change that is an undoing of all the systematic generational harm that's been done over the past 400 years in this country. And, until there's real equity across the board, I don't see, I just don't have a lot of hopefulness for, everyone coming together in kumbaya moments. The one glimmer of hope, after George Floyd, and you saw the Black Lives movement spring up and really take effect, you saw a lot of youth and people, Black, white, Asian, you saw a lot of different races come together as allies to ask for real police reform. And that's hopeful. And I hope that there's enough youth that just see the injustices that are happening, that have empathy, that will take their thoughts to the voting polls or to marches or to speak up when they do see, indignities being committed, against people. I hope they feel empowered to do that.
Yeah, Obama got elected, and a lot of people thought, okay, we're not post-racial, but boy, we were wrong with that assessment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because along came Trump, and
I think that anti-racist education is going to be really important moving forward. That's one of the things that gives me like a glimmer of hope for the future. Because it feels right now.
But then you have Florida.
Can't have that in Florida.
But you have like I've said before, more kind of understanding and awareness around it, and so people are kind of starting to educate themselves, which will help them educate others.
Right.
So I think that that's a big part of how we move forward, but it really sure is slow going, isn't it?
Well, I mean, Emmett Till, I mean, he was killed in the 1950s, and just looking at his face in his coffin, should have done a lot, and it did do a lot. But boy, you're right about it moving slow. It's moving real slow. Okay, this question deals with the resulting effect of the overlap of already mentioned questions, as well as the next question and how it is manifested in our reality. That is, whether our future will be democratically driven or controlled by an authoritarian tyranny. The majority of Americans believe that climate change is real and dangerous, that women deserve the right to control their own bodies, that we all should be allowed to love who we want, that gun controls need to be implemented and enforced, that racial discrimination is both stupid and counterproductive. But progress on these issues is being stopped by the forces representing a shrinking minority that controls the Republican Party, gerrymandered congressional districts, the Supreme Court, the Senate filibuster, and in 2016, a president who lost the popular vote by 3 million ballots. So who is winning this struggle now? Advocates for democracy or the dystopia of authoritarian rule? Who wins in the end? Jack, how concerned are you about democracy versus authoritarianism? Or is it something you even thought about?
I have thought about it a little bit. I am concerned. I think I'm not, and I don't want to phrase that wrong. I'm beginning to get less concerned because people in the party for the democracy and not the authoritarian party, if you will.
So what gives you this hope then? Why are you less concerned now?
Because people are actually speaking up. Well, for instance, I came from a very conservative family, extremely conservative family, part of it anyway. And they tell their kids when they're of age, go out and vote right now, vote for this person now, go. And see the other side of my family, very democratic, not no force, no push, nothing. And so I think, uh, and that's not, I can think of other examples, but for the majority of people, it's that one party is very forceful with get out and vote. That's the only way we're gonna win. And the other party is, yeah, we'll vote, but we're not gonna force everybody else to vote, you know? And I think it's hopeful seeing that we're finally getting to, yeah, go out and vote now. Everybody go out and vote, not just one group, because you know that doesn't work. Not if you want what you actually want. So yeah, that's what I think.
Okay. Monica, the democracy versus authoritarianism. I mean, there's reasons to look positively for either side that things are moving in their direction, but
Certainly. I mean, I have to be hopeful as an American, as you know, standing on the shoulders of my grandfather and father who fought in the Korean War, who fought in Vietnam. I am hopeful that democracy will prevail. And this is a great country, and you know, some of the presidents that we've had recently that have acted like, you know, autocratic dictators. Hopefully, we have enough people that have seen enough of that will not tolerate that. Um, hopefully, I'm just hopeful.
how hopeful are you, Whitney?
I don't know. I was thinking about this recently because, you know, with the kind of the breaking news that all of the Fox News pundits knew that Trump was off his rocker when he was ranting about losing the election, and they still went on the air and said all the things that they said. It made me so mad because it they knew. They knew. And they still, sorry, I've got like my ring light clipped to my computer and it keeps falling over. They knew, and they decided to go on the air and say all the things that they said anyway because of money. And I mean, it really is, that's what it's all about. Whoever has the money, unfortunately. And again, we live in a capitalist hellscape, and you know, money equals power and power corrupts. And so I don't know. I'm not, in some ways I kind of feel like it could go either way. Like I feel like these next few years are really important to figuring that out in which direction we're going to go. And I don't really know one way or the other. It really could go either way, in my opinion.
Yeah, the scary part about your example of Fox News is that it is the highest rated news network. More people watch Fox News, and they were more concerned about not pissing off their viewers, because if they said that Trump really lost, they would lose viewership to Newsmax or OAN, and that's what their biggest fear was. That came out from Rupert Murdoch's deposition, but it's spooky. Okay, last question here, folks. The primary economic feature of feudal society was the distribution of wealth. The lords had it all, and the commons were mired in poverty. Though much of the concept has been delegated to the waste bins of history, with the advent and subsequent dominant ascension of capitalism as our current economic system on this planet, we are still stuck with the results of wealth inequality. And looking at the numbers, it seems to be getting more pronounced. Large populations live with food insecurity on a daily basis. It is my opinion that happiness is an elusive quality when poverty pervades family life. Money can't buy happiness, but isn't comfort a prerequisite for happiness to have a chance? What is your assessment of the dynamic of wealth inequality, happiness, and the future of the interaction of those two conditions? Can we have happiness with the way things are now, or does there need to be something different? The nature of this question is about how we're going to move forward and have our family, our households, how we live to be happy. If we have poverty that is just, you're so worried about paying your bills and getting evicted. Can we be happy with that being the circumstance? Whitney, I don't think we can. What do you think?
No, I mean, again, capitalist hellscape, and money doesn't buy happiness, but it sure goes a long way towards it. I mean, money means that, especially in our country with our, messed up system of everything. I mean, money means that you have access to, you know, food, healthy food, healthcare, and, affordable housing and clothes. Like, I mean, just all of the, the things on the hierarchy of needs. And, yeah, and then that's not to say that you can't be happy without it, because there are plenty of people, most people, who don't have, ridiculous amounts of money and still are, can be happy because of, the people that they have, that they surround themselves with in their lives, and, like, maybe work that they do that they find fulfilling. But it's unfortunate that the society that we live in is so, like, capitalist and money driven, because it really means that someone's always going to suffer. Like, you always have to step on somebody to get up to, like, where you are. And yeah, I don't know, I don't see that changing anytime soon. I feel like I'm really a downer today, and I'm sorry. Like, I feel like all of my answers are like, yes, everything is terrible and that's not going to change.
Well, we're going to call this a realistic view of the future. Okay?
Yeah, it's real. Yeah, really. Well, this question really hits home with me, because just last week, I called my mortgage company because my mortgage rate, now my taxes are tied into that too, jumped up $400. And I had to call and say, wait, what? Where did this come from? And they're like, oh, you don't get paper statements anymore, so you don't have an explanation. So when he went and he said, well, your school taxes went up, this tax went up, this tax, property tax, whatever. And I said, I can't afford a $400 jump. I absolutely can't. And I've been stressing about that. And now it's, March 1st tomorrow. And I'm like, I gotta call them back, and do I have to get on some kind of plan? And then the thoughts are like, am I gonna lose my house? And, like, it's just the stress of just that has had me, I have anxiety, it has had me just uneasy. And if your basic necessities, like, a roof over your head, are not being met, then, it's almost like, and I do have someone special in my life that is fantastic, but I can't really sit back and relax and enjoy everything if I'm, so stressful, and, like, I don't know how I'm coming up with an extra, $400 every month, because I'm on a very fixed income right now. And, am I gonna have to take on another job or work 2 or 3 jobs? And then where is that, work-life balance, that you can feel, at peace, that, you can relax and have fun and enjoy life.
Well, you just scared the hell out of me, because we live in
I know, you gotta go check.
And if you had a $400 jump a year, and it didn't have anything to do with with the rate.
Yeah, and it just started this month, February.
Do you have adjustable in mortgage rate, or is your mortgage adjustable, or is it fixed?
It's fixed, and it's Yeah, yeah.
Now you're really scared me.
I know.
I talk to my wife and see what's going on here.
Yeah, go check. I'm calling them back again tomorrow. I did have the one thing I negotiated with my homeowners insurance because they had appraised my house, I guess, for way more than it needs to be. So that was adjusted, and then they told me to go back and have them review my escrow again. So yeah, I'm on it. But the guy was like, "Yeah, well, the taxes we can't negotiate that." So yeah, go take take a look.
Well, you can go back to the tax assessor if he assesses your taxes.
And that's what I am thinking. Yep.
My suggestion is take a club to the meeting there.
Right, right.
Okay, last one. You're going to wrap this up for us, Jack. The idea of having a home that you're always worried about money and you're not able to pay your bills and you're heading into the red. Could that be a happy home?
How would that be a happy home?
That's my question. How could it be?
No, no, not at all. I think it's crazy that there are several people in the world that have just this insurmountable amount of wealth, just a crazy amount of money, and then we're over here like, please
Right.
give me some of your wealth, mister. But no, no, it's crazy. The price of housing right now, the price of apartments, renting apartments, in Alaska, it's a little different. Everything's more expensive, just like, but I've been looking for apartments and it's crazy. It's crazy. I need a job before I can get an apartment. I mean, and I'm going to college, so what am I gonna do? I'm gonna live at home while I go to college, and then once I get my job out of college, I'm gonna move into an apartment. So, but I'm not getting a house for several years, probably up to a decade. There's no way. There's no way. Not in this economy.
Mhm.
Absolutely not.
I
Mhm.
don't
No.
think I'll ever get a house, and so yeah. If that makes you feel any better, the rent is
Yeah.
insane here too, but I still like can't. I don't know. There's no way. Not a chance.
No. No. Not at all.
Well, that left us all in a very positive mindset here. Thank you, panel, Monica, Whitney, Jack. Really appreciate it. Great discussion tonight. And all you out there in Cyberland, thanks for listening. Until next time, bye now.